Imagine. You've spent 12 years building your career, putting your heart and soul into your company, and one day your boss smirks and fires you. The only thing he doesn't know is that you now own the entire firm. Do you want to know how this became possible and how it all ended? Then watch to the end. You'll find a story of cold revenge, brilliant strategy, and true leadership. Imagine sitting across from your boss, the man who spent the last year looking for every excuse to undermine you, and hearing him deliver your termination like it's a personal victory lap. That's exactly where Emma Carter found herself, in the executive suite of Wallace Innovations, a sleek San Diego tech firm, listening to Thomas Reynolds explain, with a smug glint in his eye, that her position was being phased out. "We're restructuring the division," Thomas announced, reclining in his oversized leather chair like a man who just secured a win in some invisible chess game. "Your role as head of marketing will no longer exist as of next month." Emma kept her face neutral. "I understand," she said calmly, though her blood hummed with anticipation. Thomas, mistaking her composure for defeat, leaned forward. "Before you leave," he added, "I need you to train your replacement. Madison starts tomorrow. I expect you to bring her up to speed on everything she'll need to manage our marketing department." Our marketing department. The irony of those words almost made her smile. You see, what Thomas didn't know, what nobody in that room knew, was that Emma wasn't just the outgoing marketing head. For the past 3 months, she had secretly owned the very company that was letting her go. Through a private acquisition via a firm called KMC Holdings, she had become the majority shareholder of Wallace Innovations. And the kicker? KMC stood for Catherine Marie Carter, her full name. Ever been in a room where everyone assumes you're powerless, but you're actually the most powerful person there? That's where Emma was, and she was just getting started. "Of course," she replied smoothly. "I'll make sure Madison knows everything she needs." Thomas nodded, satisfied, not realizing he'd just handed her the reins to her own revenge. "I appreciate your professionalism. Most people get emotional when they're laid off. What would you have done in Emma's place? Would you have smiled and played along? Or would you have dropped the bomb right then and there?" Emma didn't. She wasn't just playing the long game. She was the long game. Back in her office, she sat at her desk. The same desk she'd earned over 14 years of climbing the ladder from a fresh-faced marketing assistant to head of the entire department. She thought of Alan Wallace, the company's founder, and the man who had once believed in her more than anyone else. Before his passing 4 years ago, Alan had mentored her, taught her to lead with vision, not ego. His death was the beginning of the end for Wallace Innovations. That's when Thomas, his stepson, stepped in. Thomas had stripped away everything Alan built. The inclusive culture, the push for innovation, the investment in talent gone. In their place, favoritism, corporate politics, and short-sighted profits. Good people left. Great ones were pushed out. And that's when Emma started buying stock. She started small. A few shares here and there, nothing to raise suspicion. When larger investors began bailing, she formed KMC Holdings and began acquiring in earnest, always staying just below the public disclosure threshold. Then 3 months ago, an institutional investor wanted out. That was her moment. Through a series of complex deals coordinated by her lawyer, Jordan Kim, Emma quietly secured controlling interest. She owned Wallace Innovations. Thomas didn't even see it coming. That afternoon, her best friend Lauren, now head of HR and one of the few people in the know, dropped by. "So," Lauren said with a grin, "does he still think he's king of the castle?" Emma chuckled, flipping through the binder of intel she had compiled on Madison, her so-called replacement, and her last employer. "He's too busy congratulating himself for poaching someone from Avalon Dynamics." Lauren raised an eyebrow. "Avalon? The same Avalon that's hemorrhaging clients and being audited for financial misconduct." "That's the one," Emma confirmed, smirking. "Does he have any idea what's about to hit him?" Emma looked over at a photo on her desk, one of her and Alan Wallace at the company's 10-year anniversary. "Tomorrow morning, Jordan files the ownership documents. Then we call an emergency board meeting." She paused. "It's time to finish what Alan started. Now, let me ask you, dear listener, what would you do if you were in Emma's shoes? Would you let him find out in a boardroom, surrounded by shocked executives? Or would you confront him face to face, let him know the empire he thought he controlled was never really his? The clock was ticking, and for Thomas Reynolds, the illusion of power was about to shatter. Lauren's eyes gleamed with understanding, a quiet pride glinting beneath the surface. "Alan would be proud of you," she said softly. "You're not just saving his company. You're making it better." Emma felt a sting behind her eyes but blinked it away. There'd be time for emotions later. For now, she had business to finish. She arrived early the next morning, settling into her office just as the city skyline turned golden. At precisely 8:45, Madison Green strode through the front entrance of Wallace Innovations. All polished shoes, designer handbag, and corporate ambition. Her resume had certainly looked impressive on paper, but Emma knew better. She had done her homework. "Madison," Emma greeted her with a firm handshake and a polite smile. "Welcome to Wallace. I'll be showing you around for the next couple of weeks and getting you up to speed." Madison offered a tight-lipped smile and looked Emma up and down in a way that made her intentions crystal clear. "That's very generous of you," she said. "Thomas already filled me in on the strategic changes he's planning for the department." "I bet he did," Emma thought as she led her down the hallway toward her office. "What would you do if someone strutted into your workplace, already treating you like you were yesterday's news?" For the next 2 hours, Emma guided Madison through the firm's marketing initiatives, key client relationships, and future strategy plans. Madison nodded occasionally but showed little interest in continuity. "These relationship-building campaigns feel outdated," she finally remarked, gesturing dismissively toward a deck Emma had prepared. "In my experience, aggressive outreach delivers better results than nurturing existing clients." Emma jotted down a mental note, not about the comment, but about Madison's arrogance. It would come in handy later. At exactly 10 a.m., her phone buzzed. A text from Jordan. Documents filed. Board members notified. Meeting set for 11 o'clock. Showtime. Emma turned to Madison. "Apologies, but we'll need to cut today's session short. I've got an emergency board meeting I need to attend." Madison raised her eyebrows. "Board meeting?" Thomas didn't mention anything. "No," Emma said with a calm smile. "I don't imagine he did." She stepped out of the office, walking slowly but purposefully down the hallway toward the executive conference room. Just outside, she saw Thomas pacing on the phone, clearly agitated. "What's this about a sudden board meeting?" he barked into the phone. "I'm the CEO. No one schedules a board session without my—" He froze when he saw Emma walk past him and into the room. "Emma? This is an executive meeting. What are you doing here?" She didn't break stride. "Exactly where I belong," she said simply, taking the seat at the head of the table. "Think about that moment for a second. How would you react if someone you tried to push out just sat at the head of your own boardroom?" One by one, the board members filed in, the veterans who had served under Alan Wallace, people Thomas had steadily sidelined. Their eyes widened as they took their seats and noticed Emma, composed and in control. Jordan entered last, handing out thick manila folders to each member. Thomas stormed into the room. "What the hell is going on here?" he demanded. "I never authorized this." "No," Emma said, rising to her feet. "I did." A hush fell over the room as Jordan began distributing the legal documents. "As of this morning," Emma announced, "KMC Holdings has acquired controlling interest in Wallace Innovations. The SEC has received full disclosure, and documentation is included in front of each of you." Thomas's face turned from crimson to chalk white. "KMC Holdings?" he sputtered. "That's your firm." Emma gave a measured nod. "Named after my full name, Catherine Marie Carter." Gasps, murmurs, and confused glances spread across the room. The board members leaned into their packets, flipping through page after page of ironclad legal filings. Thomas looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. "This is impossible," he stammered. "You're just the head of marketing. You can't afford to buy out a company of this size." "Actually, I could," Emma replied coolly. "And I did. Years of careful planning, sound investments, and the right team made it possible. And now here we are. The room was dead silent. What happens next? Someone finally asked. Emma smiled gently. Now we discuss the future of Wallace Innovations. A future where leadership is earned, not inherited. Where vision trumps ego. Where we go back to building something meaningful. She looked directly at Thomas. His eyes had lost their fire, replaced by stunned realization. Would you have shown him mercy at that moment? Or would you have let him feel the full weight of everything he had lost? Emma sat back down, steepled her fingers, and waited. This wasn't revenge. This was justice. What would you do if you were her? Write in the comments. I'm really curious whose side you sympathize with. Don't forget to give me a like if the story appeals to you, and subscribe. There are more twists and turns to come. Emma Carter carefully pulled an old photo of Alan Wallace from her desk drawer and placed it on the conference table. This company was built on innovation, integrity, and respect for its people, she said, her voice steady. It is time we return to those values. Across the room, Thomas Reynolds shot up from his chair, the legs screeching angrily against the hardwood floor. This is outrageous, he snapped. I'm calling my lawyers. There's no way this acquisition is legitimate. Jordan Kim, Emma's attorney, cleared his throat and stood calmly. I assure you, Mr. Reynolds, every aspect of this transaction is fully legal. I personally oversaw the structure of each purchase, each filing. Would you like to review the timeline? Emma watched as Jordan handed out folder after folder, stock purchases, SEC filings, internal communications, and legal opinions, each one a nail in Thomas's corporate coffin. As you'll see, Jordan said, his tone cool and measured, Ms. Carter now holds 51% ownership in Wallace Innovations. The board has convened today to determine the company's new leadership structure. Thomas's face drained of color. You manipulative little. I would choose your next words very carefully, Emma interrupted, her voice like ice. The board is listening. And they were. Each board member, most of them veterans who had served under Alan Wallace himself, sat in silence, eyes fixed on the scene playing out before them. They had seen the decline. They had lived it. And now they were witnessing its reckoning. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, Emma continued, rising to her feet. In the last 3 years, Wallace Innovations has lost market share, top-tier employees, and most importantly, its identity. The culture of transparency and creativity that Alan instilled has been stripped away. She began passing out a second packet, detailed charts and performance metrics. Revenue is down by 40%. We've lost 12 cornerstone clients. Employee turnover is at an all-time high. And yet, it's not just about numbers. She paused. It's about who we are as a company. Alan wanted to build something lasting, something meaningful. We've strayed too far from that vision. What would you do if you saw the company your mentor built slipping away into mediocrity, and you had the power to change it? Thomas scoffed. Spare us the emotional nonsense. Business is about profit, not your precious memories of my stepfather. That was the final straw. Janet Kim, one of the more respected board members, stood up. Actually, Thomas, business is about sustainable growth and principled leadership, both of which we have been sorely lacking. Other board members nodded in quiet agreement. The momentum had shifted. I propose a vote, Janet said. It's time for new leadership. I second the motion, another voice chimed in. Thomas spun around, his eyes wild. You can't do this. I'm a Wallace. This is my company. Emma stepped forward. No, Thomas. This was your stepfather's company, and he knew leadership isn't inherited. It's earned. The vote was swift and decisive. Within 15 minutes, Thomas Reynolds was no longer the CEO of Wallace Innovations. Security was called. He was escorted out of the building, shouting threats of lawsuits and revenge, his face red with fury. As the boardroom cleared out, Janet lingered behind. She placed a steady hand on Emma's shoulder. That couldn't have been easy, she said softly, but it was the right thing to do. Emma nodded, the full weight of her decision beginning to settle on her. The hard part was just beginning. In the weeks that followed, the company became a whirlwind of change. Her first task, deal with Madison Green. Hired by Thomas specifically to replace Emma, Madison's contract was never finalized. After a brief meeting, where Emma raised concerns about her track record and the ongoing investigation into her former firm, Madison chose to withdraw from the position. Next came restructuring. Emma and Lauren worked late into the nights, reviewing personnel files, searching for talent that had been buried or overlooked during Thomas's reign. "Take a look at this one," Lauren said one evening, holding up a folder. "Thomas Chun from engineering. He's been passed over for promotion 3 times, despite holding multiple patents and stellar performance reviews." Emma scanned the report. "Schedule a meeting. We need people like him leading this place. What about you? If you were Emma, how would you rebuild a company that had lost its soul? Where would you start? With strategy? With people? With trust?" The pieces were falling into place. But Emma knew regaining a legacy was never about one boardroom victory. It was about rebuilding the entire foundation. And she was just getting started. Bit by bit, the company began to rebuild. Emma Carter revived the mentorship program Alan Wallace had once cherished. She reopened the innovation lab Thomas had shut down in favor of more cost-efficient strategies. But perhaps most importantly, she reignited the culture that once made Wallace Innovations a place people believed in, a place they loved. 1 month after the acquisition, Emma sat in what used to be Thomas's office. Now redesigned, lighter, filled with green plants and warm wood. Across from her, Lauren beamed as she flipped through a thick report. "Employee satisfaction is up 30%, Lauren said, "and 3 former team members have reached out asking if they can come back." Emma smiled, thinking about how much the atmosphere had changed. The office felt alive again. People spoke freely, pitched bold ideas, questioned leadership, not with fear, but with confidence. But not everything had gone smoothly. As expected, Thomas had launched a flurry of legal reviews, trying to find some loophole in the acquisition. He came up empty, but the process was tense. Then came the industry rumors. Whispers that Wallace Innovations was in chaos, unstable under new leadership. Emma responded the only way that mattered, with results. Within 6 months, the company was not just steady, it was growing again. Products that had once been shelved were now in development. New clients signed on. The innovation pipeline surged. 1 year later, Emma stood at the front of the company auditorium during the annual town hall. The room was packed. Over 100 new employees had joined in the past 12 months. When Alan Wallace founded this company, Emma began, her voice firm but heartfelt. He had a vision, not just to create great tech, but to build something meaningful, a place where innovation and integrity went hand in hand. She paused, letting the words settle over the crowd. For a time, we lost that vision. But today we are back on track. Applause began rippling through the crowd. This past year, we've seen a 45% increase in profits. Our employee satisfaction is at an all-time high. But more than that, we are making a difference. She turned toward the screen behind her, revealing a new initiative, a partnership between Wallace Innovations and underfunded school districts to bring STEM education and technology directly into classrooms. This, Emma said, pointing to the slide, this is success, not just numbers in a spreadsheet, not just products on a shelf, but impact on real lives. What do you think, if you were in Emma's place, would you have done the same? Could you have resisted the urge to crush your enemies and instead focused on building something bigger? After the meeting, Lauren found Emma in her office, gazing at an old photo of Alan. "You know," Lauren said quietly, "he'd be proud." Emma nodded and gently touched the frame. "I hope so. Sometimes I still wonder if I did the right thing taking all this on." Lauren didn't hesitate. "Emma, you didn't just take it on. You saved it. And you built something better." And she had. The technology was sharper, the workplace stronger, the mission clearer than ever. Next to the photo of Alan was a newer picture, taken just weeks earlier at the company picnic. Hundreds of smiling faces. Engineers, marketers, interns, leadership, all part of something that mattered. That evening, as Emma was preparing to leave, an unexpected email landed in her inbox. It was from Margaret Wallace, Alan's widow. Dear Emma, I have watched what you've done this past year with the company. Alan always said you were special, that you truly understood what Wallace Innovations was meant to be. He was right. Thank you for protecting his dream and for making it even better. With deep gratitude, Margaret. Emma's eyes welled up with tears as she read the message. This was why she had done it. Not to prove Thomas wrong. Not for personal glory. But because some dreams deserve to be protected. Some visions deserve to live on. The next morning, she arrived at the office early as usual. The halls were quiet, but not for long. Soon, the space would fill with energy, ideas, and the spirit of possibility. She passed a wall where Alan's old motto still hung, etched in brass. Success isn't just about money. It's about creating something that matters. Emma smiled, remembering how far they had come. Thomas thought he could force her out, replace her, silence her. Instead, he had inspired her to become something more. Not just a marketer, but a leader. Not just a leader, but a visionary. And sometimes, the best revenge is no revenge at all. Just proving that the right way was the best way all along. As employees filled the building, the familiar hum of creativity returned. That was Alan Wallace's true legacy. Not just a company, but a community. A force for good. And now, it was Emma Carter's legacy too. That's the denouement. What do you think? Is it justice or too soft? Write your opinion in the comments. I read everyone. If the story hooked you, put a like and be sure to subscribe. The best part is just beginning.